Did you know that over 1 million people now owe more than $200,000 in federal student loans? If you could have avoided or reduced your student loan debt, would you have? Higher education is expensive and will continue to get expensive. It traps millions of families in this all-consuming debt. So if you are a parent thinking and planning about your kid's future, or if you are a college student wondering what will happen when you graduate, or if you are someone looking to go to grad school to see if the debt of a master's degree will pay off, this video will discuss ways to mitigate the impact of student loans. This week, my daughter started kindergarten, and while we have a long way to go, my husband and I are already planning and discussing what her education path will be. We, of course, want the best for her, but that does come with a price. And one thing we agree on is that college or some sort of higher education will be in our future. And as we know it, it's not going to be free or cheap. It will require money. And I am vowing to be as prepared as possible, meaning we have these conversations about college and cost early on, and that we as a family make financial moves, make trade-offs now so that we can make college realistically affordable for our family. You may think I'm crazy for planning 13 years ahead, but I would rather do this, make sacrifices now, than have my daughter and possibly my husband and myself spend 13 years paying off debt. I would rather plan forward. Thank you for joining me here today at Sisters for Financial Independence. My name is Catherine Agapjan, and here at Sisters for Fi, we cover topics related to money, motherhood, and everything else in between. A big topic that's going to hit your life in a few years will most likely be college admissions and the student loans that accompany it. So what can we do now, prepare ahead of time, so that we are not placing that burden of debt on our kids as well as on ourselves? The first thing I would recommend that you do is to truly understand how student loans work and what they will mean for your future. As I record this, millions of young adults are moving into college campuses across the country, giddy with anticipation of being somewhere new and exciting. Maybe you are at the dream school. Maybe you are at a place far from home. Maybe you are at a place that holds so much potential opportunities for you. One thing you may not be thinking about is what you signed earlier in the year to secure your spot at your college of choice. As a student, you likely borrowed money. You signed an MPN, which is a master promissory note, in which you promise to pay your loans and any accrued interest and fees. You will also see some terms and conditions of your loans. Now, upon signing these, you entered into a legally binding contract with either the federal government or a private company based on your future potential. As a student, you likely don't have a well-established credit history. You don't have a long track record of earning an income. And in order to qualify for federal student loans, the criteria is fairly minimal. And because the data is minimal to see if you are a good borrower, this can have a huge impact. Now, I know that sounds harsh, but when you think about it, when you signed those notes, you basically signed away your future income to go to college today. If you are a parent, you likely also signed the same thing because the lack of credit history, the lack of income information, your student needed a co-signer. If you are a parent who decided to co-sign for your children, you will be on the hook for these student loans. They will look at your own credit history to see if you are a good borrower. This is a reminder that financial decisions does trickle down generations. If as a parent you were on top of your credit and have stellar credit history, that will be reflected in your students' borrowing costs, which will hopefully mean for them lesser interest rates and lesser debt. So unfortunately, if your credit history is not as good, your rates for these student loans will be higher. Now, as you sign these promissory notes for the first year, it might not seem as much, especially because it's only covering a few semesters. But as you continue with your education, the balance of your loans will quickly add up. And one thing that you may not see on your promissory notes is the interest rates of your loans and its impact on the balance. Sometimes we forget is that interest can accumulate very quickly, especially if it's in the double digits, ensuring that your balance continues to increase year by year. If no one told you this, let me tell you now. Having large student loan debts looming over your head in your 20s cramps your lifestyle. It doesn't allow you to do all the fun things and cool things that you could be doing in your 20s. Now, as you move towards your 30s, unfortunately, that debt will also keep you from saving, building wealth, and potentially providing the kind of life that you want for the family that you want to have. Incurring student loan debt means promising your future earnings to someone else for something that you probably don't remember all too well. So think about your future self. Think about the income that you're going to make. Do you want that to go to the past, or do you want that to go to the present as well as the future? Now, many of you may say that I don't have a choice. I need to go to college. And that may be true. College degree is often a necessity. However, you do have choices in what you study, where you go, and how you can lower the cost down. You need to be planning ahead for this. This is not some decision you make senior year. This should be a decision that you've made over the few years so that you find the college and the costs that fit for you and your family. We have become alarmingly desensitized to the astronomical costs of college education, and it is disturbingly commonplace for students to graduate with debt of over $200,000 or more. As if this financial burden is acceptable, I want you to think differently when it comes to that. Do not normalize excessive student debt, so consider your options fully. Before we move on with the rest of this video, I want to pause and look at some numbers. We are going to dive in to see what the current rates are for federal student loans. Federal student loan rates are set by Congress and they change every year. So you would want to check your paperwork to see what the interest rates were when your loans were disbursed. Now, the table below will provide you loans for disbursements this year, which is July 1st, 2023, and before July 1st, 2024. So this is the majority of first years going into college. Here is the loans. You have direct subsidized loans. So this is the loans that does not accumulate interest while you are in school, and direct unsubsidized, which accumulates interest while in school. That is at 5.5. You have the unsubsidized loans for graduate or professionals. If you're thinking about a master's degree, this is loans that will accumulate interest while you are in school. That's at 7.05%. And for parents who have decided to take out loans for your kids, this is you at 8. This is a handy calculator that you should use to calculate how much you will owe. I will link it in the description so you have it handy. And they have multiple options for the calculators. You can see your repayment options, but let's look at the bottom one for student loan projection calculator. And basically it allows us to project how much of the loans we will have at the end. So we are looking at someone who just entered college first year and will graduate in 4 years. Estimated loan amount is $10,000 per year, and we're starting at 0 because we are in our first year. And normally loans have a 10-year loan term and the grace period of 6 months. Now the interest rates that we had for undergraduate was 5.5. So let's do that for interest rates. And I am going to select the subsidized, so interest is not accumulating, because I want us to see the difference. Now let's calculate. So at the end of the year, we would have borrowed around $40,000. Total interest accumulated over $12,000 at this point. And you are at a monthly payment for 10 years of $434. That's a long time to be shelling out that money. Now, what if we were unsubsidized and interest accumulates while in school? So let's check that off. calculate. And here is what we are looking at. So we have balance of 40,000. We have a new balance after graduation, after the grace period, and the total interest we're paying is around 19,000. That is significant as someone who is graduating from college and looking at this number. Now, what I want you to start thinking about is how can we reduce these loans? This can be as simple as getting a $1,000 scholarship. This could be saying no to living on campus so you're not putting room and board on your balance sheet. As your college career continues and as you sign for each year, the rates will likely be different. Here is some of the past rates, just to see what they look like, and you will see that the rates were fairly low back then. As your college career continues, you will sign a new loan for each semester and each year, and the rates for those loans will be different. This could be a factor if you're going to go to school or grad school, that you might want to wait until the rates are lower. So now that you understand the impact of student loan debt, it's time to understand the kind of student loans that you sign up for. Student loans come in a myriad of forms and variations. So it's so easy to overlook the finer details when you're just electronically signing a stack of financial documents for college admission. The process can be overwhelming, and the long-term consequences of these decisions may not be immediately apparent. It's good to understand and break down the type of student loans that you sign up for and that are available to students and parents. Understanding the kind of loans you sign up for can go a long way in helping you figure out a plan to finance your education in a more responsible way and figure out a repayment strategy where you don't wait until you graduate. First, it's important to distinguish between federal and private student loans. Federal loans are provided by the government and typically offer more favorable terms, including lower interest rates and more flexible repayment options. However, these loans often come with borrowing limits, so it may not cover the full cost of education, and you may need to supplement with private student loans. Federal loans can be further categorized into several types, each designed to meet different needs. The first one is the undergraduate loans. We saw the interest rates on those, and they both come in subsidized and unsubsidized options. Subsidized means the government pays interest while you're in school, and unsubsidized means interest accrues from the moment the loan is disbursed. So if you have an unsubsidized loan disbursed freshman year, first year of college, that means over the course of sophomore, junior, and finally senior year, interest has continued to accrue on that loan. The other option for federal student loans is the graduate loans. They are typically unsubsidized and have borrowing limits to accommodate the increased cost of graduate education. This might also be where you want to figure out and really plan out if you can graduate either within 2 years, 4 years, or within a specific time frame, so you are not extending the life of that loan and again accruing interest. And the last type of loan is your Parent Plus loans. These are loans that parents can take out to help finance their children's education, often with higher rates but also higher borrowing limits. So parents, you need to be aware of this impact on you. If you are going to retire soon, what will this loan mean for you? Is this the right thing you should be doing? Understandably, we want the best for our children. We want to make sure they have that higher education, but at what cost? Do you want to be paying down these loans in your 60s, 70s for your children? Or can you find an alternative instead? Beyond federal loans, private loans are offered by banks, credit unions, and other financial institutions to fill the gap when federal aid is insufficient. Now, these loans come with a more diverse set of terms and conditions. So again, it's good to read the fine print on these. Now, generally, private student loans have higher interest rates compared to federal loans, as they are typically based on current market rates and the borrower's credit worthiness. Big picture here. If we are in a high rate environment, likely the private student loans that you have signed up for will be at a higher rate. If you don't have good credit history, you will also likely have higher rates. So planning ahead, thinking about market conditions as well as your own financial condition can help reduce the cost of borrowing. The repayment terms for private loans are often less flexible than those of federal loans. They may not offer the same range of income-driven repayment plans or loan forgiveness options that federal loans provide. Additionally, private loans usually require payments to begin while the student is still in school, unlike many federal loans that offer deferment options. So, crucial to review all the documentation that you signed. It might be helpful to print it out and really review it with a parent, with someone else, so you understand the terms of your loans and you have something in place post-graduation for better budgeting. Now, an action item for this point of the video is for you to create your own spreadsheet which tracks your student loans. List them all down. List them with interest rates and list whether they're subsidized, unsubsidized, as well as any due dates. You want to be on top of this so that you can save yourself some money and save your future self the burden of all of this debt, and maybe how much you need to start repaying as soon as possible. So now that we understand the impact of student loan debt and how it cramps your lifestyle, and now that we understand how rates quickly increase your balance, and now that we understand the different kinds of student loans we've taken on, it's now time to figure out how can we reduce the loans we are taking on, and how can we start repaying some of these so that once we graduate, we don't have this large burden. The time in college or grad school can pass by so quickly, but unfortunately that time means interest is also accruing on your loans. So if you're watching this and concerned about your own ballooning loans or your child's student loans, it's time to find alternative ways to slow down the accumulation of interest and reduce that student loan debt. So as a parent and a grown-up, it is our responsibility to let our children know the true impact of student loans. Our kids don't know what they don't know, but I have been there, and while I believe education is important, I cannot see letting my child accumulate so much student loan debt, as it can hurt their financial, emotional, and mental well-being. We need to be that voice that tell them, find another way. So here are some tips to help you reduce loans. And I have another video that also lists some more, so you can check that out. But this is from my experience. And if you have any comments, any tips to help others reduce their debt and even not have to sign on and take on a loan, let me know in the comments. Let's share that so we don't have to normalize loan debt and many of us can breathe. Finally, I graduated many years ago from a public university here in New Jersey. Upon graduation, I had around $20,000 worth of student loans. Now, $20,000 doesn't seem like much in today's numbers, especially when we are so used to seeing $100,000 or $200,000 in student loan debt. But it was a lot for me, and it was a pain to pay off. Now, I want to thank my parents for, of course, helping financially to cash flow my education and really limit that student loan debt from accruing so much. They were insistent on going in state as well as making sure I finish within 4 years, because otherwise the cost would have ballooned had I not listened to that. And I think this is where the adults come in to really put their foot down when it comes to the increasing cost of college. Now, I want to share a few things that I personally did to reduce the loans, but this is not an exhaustive list. Let me know in the comments if you have anything else to add. So first thing is that I worked in high school as well as during college, and that helped me pay for a few credits during the summer. That helped me pay for some future housing during my senior year, as well as for other knickknacks, so that I did not have to take out loans on those items. Now, I also moved out of university housing my senior year and moved to an off-campus apartment. Was it nice and cushy? Absolutely not. Not so nice. Didn't have luxury, didn't have air conditioning and all that. But I paid out of pocket for rent and food, working part-time and interning in New York City. And that meant I did not take on any new loans to cover room and board. So that reduced my overall costs. I also took summer classes and paid out of pocket for those so that I could graduate in 4 years. I would also want you to consider if you can graduate early, if you are in a position to do so. Graduating one semester or even 1 year earlier means a few $1,000s less of loans you have to take out. It means you're in the workforce that much faster, and it means you're earning money, paying down debt, and growing your savings and investments. The next thing that you should do is review the itemized bill of your college of choice. This includes your credits, room and board, and all the other extra fees that they will tack on. And I also want you to look at where you're staying. Dorms have different rates, so it might be possible for you to save your money there if you live in a different dorm. Also consider the cost per credit. Now, as a full-time student, this cost is part of your full-time tuition, so it may behoove you to take as many credits as your workload allows so that you are not taking on extra classes and credits during the summer, and you are able to graduate in a timely manner. I think it's also worth considering that if you are unsure of what to study, if you have not saved up enough money, that maybe you wait 1 year before going to college. This is for parents as well as students to consider. I know it is exciting to be with your friends, to kind of choose that college and be the part of that experience. But if it's going to burden you in the future, it might be something to think about as you say, you know what, no, I am going to wait 1 year while I save up and find alternatives so that I don't have to sign on this. And who knows what the state of higher education will be in the next few years, but I think it behooves all of us to start planning, to start those conversations in our homes so we are prepared. Now, as a mom, I am definitely determined to make sure that my daughter does not take on too much student loan debt. I don't want her to have that financial strain as she is beginning her career. I want her to have more options and opportunities. And having large, massive amounts of student loan debt will not allow her to think of her life like that. Second, I feel like once we get into student loan debt, it's easy for us to sign on to other debt, sign on to a large car debt on all of this because those debts seem smaller relative to the $200,000 student loan debt that we may have. I think the acceptance of massive student loan debt is a standard practice is really concerning for so many reasons. We put an enormous financial strain on young adults as well as retiring parents. And lastly, as a woman who was groomed by her parents and encouraged to pursue a higher education, I think it's super important that we have the freedom and opportunity to do so, but we have to be careful at the price. But also, as a woman who wanted to have children in the future, I want to make sure that you have options, that you have choices, and that you are not burdened by student loans as you think about having a family, having a child. These financial decisions does trickle down, so think about that when you are signing those loans. Loans today can impact your tomorrow. I hope this video has given you something to think about, especially as you look at your kids or as you yourself are going to school. Thank you for joining me today at Sisters for Financial Independence. I'm Catherine Agapjan, and check out these 2 videos to help you go debt-free or manage your money a little bit better. And I will see you in the next video. Bye!